It was 5:30 in the morning when Eleanor heard a loud knock on her bedroom door. "Elena, get up! We have a big day ahead," her mother-in-law shouted. Elena sat up slowly. Her body ached from the day before. She had spent hours scrubbing the kitchen and rearranging the dining area, but no one had said, "Thank you." As she stepped out of the room, still tying her wrapper, her sister-in-law, Monique, passed her with a smirk. "They're all waiting for you downstairs," Monique said. 40 guests. Better not keep them hungry." Elena's heart sank. She had only been married to David for 7 months, and ever since they moved in with his family, things had changed. At first, they were polite, but now they barely spoke to her unless they needed something. David had stopped defending her too. He always said, "Just do what they ask, please. I don't want trouble." Elena walked into the kitchen and stopped. No one had lifted a finger to help. Pots were stacked high. Raw chicken, yam, vegetables, fish. Even the water drum was almost empty. "Is no one helping me?" she asked softly. Her mother-in-law entered, arms crossed. "This is your duty. You want to be a good wife? Then act like one. In our family, we don't spoil our women. They serve." Eleanor bit her tongue. She wanted to scream, but she didn't. Not yet. She got to work. She peeled, washed, boiled. She cut her finger but wrapped it quickly. Sweat ran down her back. No one brought her water. No one offered help. When she stepped out to catch her breath, she heard laughter from the living room. Her husband was there, joking with his cousins. He didn't even look her way. By noon, her clothes were soaked in sweat. Her feet ached. Her hands were red and shaking. Still, no one offered a word of thanks. When she called out, "The food is ready," they simply got up and sat at the long table. And that was the moment Elena made a decision. She looked at the plates in front of her. She looked at the people who had treated her like a maid in her own marriage. They thought they had broken her, but they were wrong. She smiled quietly to herself, because today she wasn't just serving food, she was serving something else, something they would never forget. Before Elena married David, she had a good life. She worked as a marketing executive at a small but growing company. Her boss respected her, and her ideas often brought in new clients. She had her own apartment, a small car, and a close group of friends. Elena was proud of the life she had built for herself. She didn't have much, but she had peace. Then she met David. He was charming, funny, and kind, or at least that's how he seemed at first. He always talked about family values and said he wanted a wife who was strong but respectful. He said, "You're different, Elena. You're the kind of woman I want to grow old with." She believed him. They got married in a simple but beautiful ceremony. Elena thought it was the beginning of a happy life together, but the happiness didn't last long. 2 weeks after the wedding, David told her they would be staying at his family's house for a while. His mother had health issues, and he said she needed help around the house. Elena didn't like the idea, but she agreed. She wanted to support her husband. That was the beginning of her quiet suffering. David's family lived in a large house in the suburbs. From the outside, it looked peaceful, but inside, it was full of rules and expectations. David's mother, Sandra, was the queen of the house. Nothing happened without her say. She didn't work, but she ruled the household with an iron hand. She didn't like Elena from day one. "You women who work and talk too much, you're not real wives," she once said to her face. David's sister, Monique, was worse. She was 25 and still living at home. She barely cooked or cleaned, but always acted like Elena was beneath her. "You were lucky my brother picked you," she'd say, while flipping through her phone. "Most girls like you stay single forever." Elena kept quiet. She tried to please them. She cooked. She cleaned. She gave up her job. She told her old boss she needed some time for family matters. At first, she hoped it was temporary, but months passed, and there was no talk of leaving. David changed too. At first, he comforted her. "Just ignore them. They'll come around," he'd say. But slowly, he stopped noticing. He came home late. He spent more time with his cousins and friends than with her. He didn't help her with chores or stand up for her when his family treated her badly. One night, Eleanor tried to talk to him. "David, I feel like I don't exist in this house. I need you to support me." He sighed and said, "You're making too much drama. Just be patient." That sentence stayed with her. Be patient. She had been patient for 7 months. She had given up her job, her friends, her freedom. She had become a shadow in her own life. Her parents lived in another city. They had warned her before the wedding. "Make sure his family respects you," her mother had said. But Elena had brushed it off. She thought love was enough. Now she wasn't even sure if David still loved her. The worst part wasn't the chores or the insults. It was the loneliness. Even when the house was full of people, Eleanor felt invisible. No one asked her how she was. No one said thank you. No one cared if she was tired, sick, or sad. She started waking up early, just to have 10 minutes of silence before the house came alive. She would stand at the kitchen window, holding a cup of tea, watching the sky change colors. In those moments, she remembered who she used to be. She missed her old self, the confident woman who spoke her mind, who had ideas and dreams, who laughed without fear. Now she hardly laughed at all. There was one small notebook she kept hidden under her pillow. It was her private space. In it, she wrote letters to herself, letters full of questions. Why did you give up so much? Why does no one see your pain? Where did your voice go? She didn't have the answers yet, but writing helped. And that morning, when they asked her to cook for 40 guests all alone, something changed. As she stood in the hot kitchen, cutting, stirring, lifting heavy pots, her mind was working. Her heart was tired, but her spirit was waking up. She wasn't angry anymore. She was done waiting for someone to save her. Something had shifted inside her. She wasn't just going to survive the day. She was going to reclaim herself in her own quiet way, on her own terms. And it was going to begin with lunch. Elena stood in the kitchen, pouring the hot jollof rice into a large serving tray. Her hands were trembling, but not from the heat. Her mind was spinning. She had been up since before sunrise, cooking for people who didn't even respect her. Every dish she placed on the table felt like a heavy stone on her chest. She wiped her forehead with her sleeve and stepped out of the kitchen. The long dining table was full. David's uncles, aunties, cousins, even some church members were all seated, laughing loudly. David was at the head of the table, smiling like everything was perfect. Eleanor placed the first tray down. No one looked up. No one said, "Well done," or even, "Thank you." Monique looked at the plate and whispered to her friend, "She could have at least made it spicy." Eleanor heard it. She looked at Monique, then at David. He didn't say a word. She went back into the kitchen and brought out the rest of the food. Stew, fried plantains, a goosey soup, pounded yam. She had done it all. After placing the last dish on the table, she stood silently at the corner, waiting to be told she could eat. That was the rule in this house. She served last, and she ate last. Just then, David's mother, Sandra, cleared her throat. "Elena," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "next time, put more effort. This food is okay, but not what we expected for such important guests." Everyone laughed lightly, as if it was just a joke. Elena didn't smile. David looked up and chuckled. "It's all right, Mom." She tried. That word hit her like a slap. 7 hours of cooking, no sleep, no help. And all he said was she tried. Then something even worse happened. One of David's cousins, a tall woman named Gloria, pulled out her phone and started recording. "Smile, Elena," she said, laughing. "Let's show everyone the chef who cooked all this." Before Eleanor could react, Gloria turned the phone to the table and said, "And here's the Queen Mother who trained her," pointing at Sandra. Everyone laughed again. Then Gloria said, "Too bad she's not pregnant yet. All this cooking, and still nothing to show for it." Silence. The laughter stopped for a moment. Eleanor's face froze. She looked at David. He looked away. Sandra sighed and said, "We're praying. But you know, some women are just slow. Or maybe they're not trying hard enough in the bedroom." A sharp, cold pain ran through Elena's chest. She couldn't breathe. She turned and walked straight out of the room, all the way upstairs, to her bedroom. She closed the door, locked it, and sat on the floor. Her hands covered her face and her body shook, not with sadness, with rage. That was it. They had crossed the line. They had insulted her womanhood, her body, her marriage, publicly, and David said nothing. She thought about all the nights she had cried silently, all the things she had given up. She stood up and walked to her mirror. She looked into her own eyes. Her face looked tired, worn out, but her eyes, they were alive. She picked up her notebook from under the pillow. She flipped through the pages, notes she had written to herself, about pain, about hope, about one day being free. Then she stopped at a blank page. She picked up a pen, and this time, she didn't write a question. She wrote a plan. She wasn't going to cry anymore. She wasn't going to beg David to see her. She wasn't going to wait for his family to accept her. She was going to make them see her, in a way they would never forget. She smiled to herself, a quiet, dangerous smile. Downstairs, the guests were still eating and laughing. But soon, very soon, the laughter would stop, because Elena was done being their maid, their joke, their silent woman. The game was about to change, and she was going to serve the final course. Elena didn't go back downstairs. She stayed in her room, quietly listening to the sounds of laughter and clinking cutlery fading into silence. Her hands were still shaking, but inside her, something had hardened. She was no longer sad. She was no longer trying to be accepted. She was angry, and she was awake. Later that night, after the guests had left and the house was quiet again, David came into the room. "Elena," he said, "you just walked out." "That was rude. My family noticed." Eleanor looked at him calmly. "They insulted me." David sighed and sat on the edge of the bed. "They didn't mean it like that. You're being too sensitive." Those words cut deeper than any insult. "Too sensitive?" she repeated slowly. David shrugged. "It's just how my mom talks. You should be used to it by now." Used to it. Like pain was something she was supposed to get comfortable with. She turned away from him. "You didn't say anything. Not one word." David didn't answer. He stood up and left the room. That night, Elena lay awake, staring at the ceiling. She thought about her old life again. The woman she used to be. She missed her so much it hurt. But something else kept coming to her mind. A question. Why was she still here? The next morning, Elena didn't wake up early. She didn't go into the kitchen. She didn't do the laundry. She stayed in bed. By 9 a.m., Sandra knocked on the door. "Elena, why haven't you boiled the water? I need to bathe." Elena didn't answer. The door opened anyway. Sandra stepped in and saw Elena still lying there. "What is this? You're just going to sleep all day now?" Elena sat up slowly. "I'm not feeling well." Sandra rolled her eyes. "Then get up and take medicine. You think this house runs on feelings?" Elena didn't move. She just stared at her. For the first time, Sandra seemed unsure. She paused, then left the room, mumbling something under her breath. Later that day, Monique told the house help. "Eleanor is pretending. She wants people to beg her." The tension in the house grew with every hour. David barely spoke to her. When he did, it was short and cold. "I don't know what game you're playing," he said, "but it's not going to work." That night, Elena overheard a conversation between David and his mother. They were in the living room. She stood quietly behind the half-closed door. "She's changing, Mum," David said. "She's not the same. She's lazy," Sandra replied. "You gave her too much freedom in the beginning. Now she thinks she can do whatever she wants." "You think I should talk to her?" Sandra laughed. "Talk? Number teach her. If she wants to eat in this house, she should earn it." Eleanor stepped back, heart pounding. So that was it. She wasn't a wife to them. She was a worker, a servant. And David, the man who promised to love and protect her, was agreeing with it. The next morning, Sandra called a family meeting. David, Monique, and a few others gathered in the living room. Elena was called last. When she entered, all eyes were on her. Sandra cleared her throat. "We need to talk about your attitude, Elena. You've become disrespectful, lazy, and careless." Monique nodded like a backup singer. "Exactly. And we all saw how you acted during the party, walking out like a spoilt child." Elena stood still. David said nothing. Sandra continued. "From now on, you will follow a schedule. You'll wake by 5 a.m., cook, clean, and help me with my errands. No excuses. No complaints." Elena looked at David. "And you agree with this?" David didn't meet her eyes. "It's just until things settle down. Don't make it worse." Worse? She didn't know it could get worse. She didn't cry. Not in front of them. She went back to the room and locked the door again. Later that evening, she received a message on her phone. It was from her old boss. "Hey Elena, I heard from a friend that you left your job. Any chance you're open to returning? We could really use your help on a new project." Her hands trembled as she held the phone. A way out, a sign. But she knew David would never allow it. Still, she replied, "Can we talk tomorrow?" She smiled. The next few days were harder. They punished her with silence. Sandra refused to eat her food. Monique kept spreading rumors in the house. "She's planning to leave my brother," she told anyone who would listen. David barely came to the room anymore. But Eleanor was no longer afraid. She was thinking, watching, planning. One afternoon, she opened the family group chat on WhatsApp. She read all the old messages. Plans for the party, jokes about her cooking, pictures from the dinner where they laughed at her. Then she saw a voice note sent by Monique to one of her friends, accidentally posted to the group. "Elena's so desperate to be accepted. I don't even know why my brother married her. Maybe he just felt sorry for her." No one deleted it. No one apologized. No one cared. But Elena saved it, because the time was coming. It was Sunday afternoon. The house was quiet but not peaceful. The air felt heavy, like something big was about to happen. Eleanor had spent the morning preparing. She wasn't cooking. She wasn't cleaning. She was getting ready to take her life back. She wore a plain dress, tied her hair neatly, and put on the calmest face she could. Inside, her heart was racing. At 2 p.m., she walked into the living room. The whole family was there. Sandra, Monique, David, and even a few of David's cousins who had come to visit. They were all talking and laughing until they saw her. She stood tall, held her phone in one hand and said, "I need everyone to listen." Monique laughed. "Who gave you the mic?" Eleanor ignored her. She looked directly at David. "I'm speaking now, and I won't be interrupted." There was silence. Something in her voice was different, calm, but powerful. David frowned. "What is this about?" Eleanor looked at him without fear. "It's about respect, about truth, about everything I've kept inside since I came into this house." Sandra rolled her eyes. "If this is another emotional breakdown, save it." But Elena didn't stop. "I left my job, my home, my life to be with you, David. I came here with love, with hope, and all I got was pain." She turned to Monique. "You mock me every day. You talk about me like I'm garbage, but you still eat the food I make. You still wear the clothes I wash." Monique stood up. "You better watch your—" Eleanor raised her hand. "Sit down. You're going to hear me today." Everyone stared at her. Even Sandra was quiet now. Then Elena played the voice note on her phone, the one from the family group chat. Monique's voice filled the room. "Elena's so desperate to be accepted. I don't even know why my brother married her. Maybe he just felt sorry for her." The room went cold. Monique's face turned pale. "That wasn't meant for—" "I know," Elena said. "That's what makes it worse." She looked at David again. "You said nothing when they insulted me. You let them break me piece by piece. But I stayed. I hoped. I waited. Until now." David looked uncomfortable. "Why are you doing this? In front of everyone?" "Because I'm done hiding," Elena said. Then she opened a folder on her phone and handed it to David. "What's this?" he asked. "My job offer. My old company wants me back." I accepted. "I start in 2 weeks." Sandra scoffed. "You didn't ask permission." Elena turned to her. "I don't need permission to live my life. Not anymore." Then she pulled out a small envelope from her pocket and handed it to David. "What's this now?" "My parents are coming next week to take me. I'm moving out." Everyone gasped. David stood up. "You're leaving me?" "You left me a long time ago," Elena said. "You just didn't say it out loud." Sandra stood up. "You're not walking out of this house like that. Not after all we've done for you." "What have you done for me?" Elena asked, her voice sharp now. "You turned me into a servant. You insulted me. You laughed at my pain." David's voice cracked. "You're overreacting." "No, David. I'm finally reacting. After everything you all put me through." Tears filled her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. "I loved you. I stood by you. But love without respect is nothing." The room was silent. Then Elena walked toward the door. Sandra shouted, "If you leave, don't come back." Elena turned back one last time. "I'm not coming back. Not to this house. Not to this life." She walked out the front door, into the sunlight. She didn't look back. That moment, everything changed. Elena had lost so much, but now she had found herself. Elena moved into a small one-bedroom apartment on the other side of town. It wasn't fancy, but it was hers. The walls were bare at first, but the space felt warm, quiet, peaceful, the kind of peace she hadn't felt in months. Her parents came to visit the day after she moved in. Her mother brought cooked food. Her father helped fix the curtain rods, and they both sat with her in silence when the tears finally came. They didn't say, "We told you so." They just held her hand and let her cry. That meant everything to her. On Monday morning, Eleanor started her new job. She walked into the office with her head high. People smiled when they saw her. Her old boss welcomed her back with a hug. "We're glad you're here," he said. For the first few days, it felt strange. She was still carrying the weight of everything she had gone through. Sometimes, in the middle of typing an email, she'd stop and remember something cruel Sandra or Monique had said. Sometimes she wondered if David was thinking about her, but she didn't let those thoughts stay too long. She focused on her work. Her first project did so well that the company gave her a bonus. She used it to buy a new sofa and a small bookshelf. Piece by piece, she was building her life again. One afternoon, after a long day at work, Elena received a message on her phone. It was from David. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I know I should have done more. I hope you're okay." She stared at the message for a long time. She didn't reply. That night, she wrote in her notebook again, the one she had kept hidden under her pillow for months. This time, she didn't write questions. She wrote answers. "I stayed because I loved you. I left because I love myself more. Pain taught me who I am. Respect is not something I should beg for. I am not broken. I'm beginning again." In the weeks that followed, Elena started to enjoy little things again. Morning coffee, evening walks, music playing while she cleaned her apartment. One Sunday, she passed by a park and saw a group of women doing a cooking demo and sharing their stories. One of them was talking about emotional abuse in marriage. Elena stood at the back and listened. When they asked if anyone wanted to speak, she raised her hand. For the first time, she told her story to strangers. Her voice didn't shake. People nodded, some cried. One woman came to her afterward and whispered, "Thank you. I needed to hear that." That night, Elena felt proud. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was helping others survive too. A few months later, she started a small online blog called The Quiet Escape. She wrote about her journey, about pain, about strength, about freedom. Women from different places sent her messages, telling her how much her words meant to them. She had turned her story into power. One evening, she received another message, this time from Monique. "Just so you know, David is seeing someone else already. Thought you'd want to hear it from me." Elena didn't respond. She didn't feel anything. Not hurt, not anger, just silence, peaceful silence. She turned off her phone, opened a book, and smiled. She no longer needed closure from the people who broke her. Her healing was not for them, it was for her. Months turned into a year. Elena grew stronger, wiser, freer. Her eyes no longer looked tired. Her laugh came easier. Her steps were lighter. She had lost a lot, but she had gained something more valuable, herself. She kept her notebook, filled now with powerful words. The last page said, "I didn't just walk away from them, I walked back to me." It was a rainy Saturday morning when Elena sat by her window, watching the drops slide down the glass. The city felt quiet, like it was taking a deep breath. She held a warm cup of tea in her hands and pulled her blanket closer. Her small apartment was still, filled with soft music playing from her phone. The peace she once prayed for was now part of her daily life. Her phone buzzed. It was a message from a young woman who had been reading her blog. "Thank you for your story. I finally had the courage to leave a bad relationship. You saved me." Elena read it twice. Her eyes filled with tears, not of sadness, but of deep emotion. She smiled gently, holding the phone to her chest. She remembered how small and broken she had once felt, how she used to doubt her worth, how she thought her voice didn't matter. Now she knew better. She wasn't just someone who survived. She was someone who helped others survive too. She stood up, walked to her mirror, and looked at herself. No makeup, no fancy clothes, just her, strong, calm, and free. She whispered softly, "I'm proud of you." Not many people knew what she had been through. Not everyone would understand, but she didn't need the world to clap for her. Her quiet victory was enough. She had walked through fire and came out with her head high. She opened her notebook one last time and wrote, "Healing doesn't always look loud. Sometimes it looks like this. A quiet morning, a soft smile, a life rebuilt from the inside out." Then she closed the notebook, made herself another cup of tea, and watched the rain, feeling something she hadn't felt in a long time, peace.